So what is EMDR and how does it work? EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and it's a very powerful technique that has been used for decades to help address psychological distress such as traumas, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and addictions, and more. Anything that has a strong emotional component to it, or anything that the person doesn't feel in control of him or herself. And so the way it works is that it stimulates both sides of the brain, the right brain and the left brain. And in that process, it unlocks the trauma or the upsetting event in the limbic system, so this part of the brain, the more primitive part of the brain, and being able to make use of the frontal cortex, so the more advanced part of the brain. So let me give you an example. Somebody grew up in a very abusive environment when they were a child, and the impact didn't stop there. Later on, as an adult, anytime that somebody yells or somebody looks at them in a certain way or have certain facial expression, that person starts to either feel really angry or start to be really anxious and really afraid, right? Because that original trauma has not been resolved, has not been changed in the brain. And so whenever something anxiety-provoking happened for them, their frontal cortex sort of goes offline and they're not able to make the best of it. And it's being driven more by the limbic system, the more primitive part of the brain. And so EMDR can be quite amazing in that certain things that people can struggle for decades, they can find a lot of relief. And sometimes the symptoms is even gone after a few sessions. Now this depends on how complex the trauma was for that person, right? If the trauma was a one-time isolated incident, such as an accident or some event that just happened, then they can really experience relief within 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, depending on what happened. But if the trauma was ongoing, such as abuse, childhood abuse, or abuse in a relationship, right? If the trauma was ongoing, then certainly it would take several sessions for that person to begin to not be so affected in the life. And so EMDR can be quite intense and powerful in that during the process it can bring up a lot of emotions for the person, or that person may experience a lot of bodily reactions, and so it can feel like they're going through an emotional tunnel. It can feel quite strong, and but if the person trusts the process and trusts me as a guide, they can move through the tunnel and come out on the other side and experience the light. And so you can do the same if you've been struggling with something for a long time now, and you feel like you haven't been able to move through that. Reach out to me and let's use EMDR together. You don't have to suffer anymore. Let's use EMDR to really help you have clarity and feel more at peace or more neutral about those things that you have been carrying with you for a long time.